As the tensions between the United States and China escalate, the potential for a full-scale trade war looms large, with significant implications for the global economy. Following President Donald Trump's recent announcement to impose tariffs exceeding 100% on a wide array of Chinese goods, both nations have dug in their heels. China has vowed to fight to the end against what it perceives as U.S. coercion, retaliating with its own trade barriers. The question now is, how will this escalating conflict reverberate around the world? In 2024, trade between the U.S. and China amounted to approximately $585 billion, with the U.S. importing a staggering $440 billion worth of goods from China while exporting only $145 billion back. This resulted in a trade deficit of $295 billion for the U.S., which, although substantial, is less than the $1 trillion figure that Trump has recently claimed. Over the past decade, however, American reliance on Chinese imports has diminished, with tariffs already imposed by the Trump administration in previous years contributing to a decline in the share of Chinese goods within the U.S. import market from 21% in 2016 to 13% in 2023. Despite this reduction, analysts have noted a concerning trend in which Chinese exports have been rerouted through Southeast Asian countries to evade tariffs. For instance, after the Trump administration imposed 30% tariffs on solar panels from China, manufacturers shifted assembly operations to nations like Malaysia and Vietnam, allowing them to export finished products back to the U.S. without incurring the additional costs. The looming reciprocal tariffs imposed on these countries are expected to amplify prices for a range of goods ultimately originating from China, further straining U.S. consumers. The primary exports from the U.S. to China include essential commodities such as soybeans, pharmaceuticals, and petroleum, while the U.S. imports a substantial amount of electronics, computers, and smartphones from China. Notably, Apple, a leading American multinational, has seen its market value decline by 20% in recent weeks, largely due to the tariffs and their implications on supply chains. Should tariffs rise to 100%, the cost burden on American consumers could multiply significantly. The ramifications of this trade war extend beyond mere tariffs. China plays a crucial role in refining metals essential for various industries, including copper, lithium, and rare earth elements. Should Beijing impose restrictions on these exports to the U.S., it could severely impact American industries reliant on these materials. Conversely, the U.S. may tighten technological export regulations, complicating China's access to advanced microchips vital for sectors like artificial intelligence. With the two nations accounting for approximately 43% of the global economy, a full-blown trade war is likely to have far-reaching consequences. Economists warned that if growth in either country slows significantly, global economic growth would likely follow suit, stifling investment and leading to broader economic instability. The UK steel lobby has already raised alarms about potential dumping of Chinese products such as steel into other markets, which could undercut local producers and threaten jobs. Experts also highlight that China's political structure, dominated by the ruling Communist Party, might afford it certain advantages in this trade confrontation. Xu Feng, dean of the School of International Studies at Nanjing University, suggests that China's centralized governance allows for more significant control over economic adjustments in response to external pressures. However, there are concerns that reliance on directives from the central government may stifle local innovation and creativity, hampering effective responses to a tariff war. As the situation unfolds, it is clear that the stakes are high for both nations and the global economy. The potential for an all-out trade war brings with it the risk of severe economic repercussions, not only for the U.S. and China but for countries worldwide. As both sides prepare for what could be a protracted conflict, the international community watches closely, recognizing that the outcomes of these trade negotiations could reshape global economic relations for years to come. The path ahead remains uncertain, but one thing is clear: the world will feel the impact of this trade war for a long time to come. As global markets tremble under the weight of escalating trade tensions, President Donald Trump's recent threats to impose additional tariffs on China have sparked renewed fears of a full-blown trade war. In a striking declaration made from the Oval Office, Trump emphasized his uncompromising stance, stating, "We're not looking at that," when asked if he would consider pausing his tariff plans. This statement came as U.S. stocks continued to decline, reflecting Wall Street's apprehension over the economic repercussions of Trump's policies. In an alarming twist, Trump announced via Truth Social that if China fails to retract its 34% increase in tariffs by April 8, 2025, the U.S. would impose an additional 50% tariff on Chinese imports effective from April 9. His aggressive posture is particularly concerning in light of China's announced retaliatory measures, which have already intensified trade barriers against U.S. goods. If the U.S. insists on its own way, China will fight to the end, warned a statement from the Chinese Commerce Ministry, underscoring the potential for a prolonged and damaging trade conflict. The ramifications of these tariffs could be dire should Trump proceed with his threats. U.S. tariffs on Chinese goods could soar to a staggering 104%. This escalation not only raises the specter of higher consumer prices in the U.S. but also risks prompting China to redirect its exports to other markets, potentially destabilizing global trade networks. Economists warn that such disruptions could lead to increased inflation, further complicating the already precarious economic landscape. Despite the bearish trends in the stock market, Trump remains resolute, arguing that the current financial turmoil is a necessary precursor to achieving a beautiful picture of an economically rebalanced U.S. He has been vocal about his commitment to revitalizing domestic manufacturing, insisting that tariffs are essential for establishing fair trade relationships. However, this conviction has led to pronounced divisions among his Republican allies, many of whom express concern over the potential for economic recession. Senator John Kennedy of Louisiana articulated this sentiment, noting, "We don't know if the medicine will be worse than the disease." While Trump has so far disregarded calls for a more conciliatory approach, the international community is beginning to reconsider its trading relationships in light of U.S. policies. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen indicated that the EU may pivot towards trade partnerships with other nations, highlighting the vast opportunities available outside of U.S. influence. Meanwhile, Japan's Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba warned that Trump's tariffs could deter Japanese investments in the U.S., further isolating the country in an increasingly fractious global economic climate. In this fraught environment, prominent figures in the business world are also voicing their apprehensions. Billionaire entrepreneur Elon Musk has expressed skepticism regarding tariffs, suggesting that both the U.S. and Europe should aim for a zero-tariff scenario to create a more cooperative trade environment. Meanwhile, hedge fund manager Bill Ackman has criticized the administration's approach, arguing that the tariffs pose a significant threat to the economic progress made under Trump's leadership. With both the U.S. and China poised for confrontation, the implications of this trade war extend beyond bilateral relations. Analysts warn that a significant slowdown in U.S. and Chinese economic growth could trigger a global recession, given that these two nations account for approximately 43% of the world economy. Furthermore, China's unique position as a manufacturing powerhouse means that any disruptions in trade could have cascading effects on supply chains worldwide. As the situation unfolds, the economic landscape remains uncertain. Trump's administration appears committed to its path of confrontation. But the mounting pressure from the markets and political allies may eventually force a re-evaluation of strategy. The coming days will be crucial in determining whether diplomacy can temper the aggressive economic policies currently shaping the U.S. China relationship, or if a trade war will escalate, leaving a lasting mark on the global economy. In a rapidly shifting global landscape marked by military posturing and strategic recalibrations, the United States finds itself increasingly alarmed by the military production surges of Russia and China. This concern stems not only from the sheer volume of military hardware being produced, but also from the implications these developments have for U.S. national security and its military readiness. Recent testimony from U.S. military commanders reveals an urgent need for vigilance. General Christopher Cavalli, chief of U.S. European Command, noted that despite significant losses in Ukraine, Russia is remarkably poised to replenish its military capabilities at an unprecedented rate. Russia has lost an estimated 3,000 tanks, 9,000 armored vehicles, and 13,000 artillery systems in the past year, he stated. Yet they are on track to replace them all. This assertion underscores a stark reality. The Kremlin has effectively mobilized its economy to support a wartime footing, with defense spending soaring to over 6% of its gross domestic product (GDP). As a result, Russia is projected to produce 1,500 tanks, 3,000 armored vehicles, and a staggering 250,000 artillery shells per month. In stark contrast, the United States is struggling to match this output. With only 135 tanks produced annually and a dwindling defense budget that has fallen to just 3% of the economy, the lowest since the Cold War, the U.S. faces a growing challenge in maintaining its military edge. This disparity is compounded by ongoing partnerships between Russia, China, Iran, and North Korea, which further amplify the strategic concerns for U.S. military leaders. As General Cavalli noted, that axis of arms production formed by these nations poses a significant threat to U.S. and allied arsenals. China's military expansion is equally troubling. The country boasts an astonishing shipbuilding capability, reportedly 200 times that of the U.S., allowing it to construct more warships in a single month than America can in a year. This expansion has been underpinned by consistent annual increases in defense spending, averaging around 9% over the last 28 years. Estimates suggest that China's actual military budget may reach as high as $711 billion, nearly matching that of the Pentagon. The implications of this are profound. Should a conflict arise, China's ability to construct, repair, and maintain naval assets offers it a distinct advantage in sustained operations. Amid these developments, the U.S. military recognizes the need for urgent reforms and investments to bolster its defense industrial base. Congressional leaders are pushing for bipartisan initiatives to enhance military readiness, modernize capabilities, and ensure that the U.S. does not fall behind its adversaries. The Pentagon's efforts to reinvigorate its shipbuilding, aerospace, and overall defense capabilities are still in the nascent stages, highlighting the challenges of addressing decades of underinvestment in the U.S. military-industrial sector. As America grapples with these increasing threats, the urgency for strategic investment becomes evident. The military is calling for a multi-year funding strategy to enhance 10 critical areas, including shipbuilding and missile production. Acknowledging the pressing need for modernization, Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth has emphasized the importance of rebuilding the workforce, facilities, and supply chains that form the backbone of the U.S. defense industry. In conclusion, as the military capabilities of Russia and China continue to grow, the United States is at a crucial juncture. The imperative for significant investment in defense infrastructure is clearer than ever, as adversaries are not waiting. Future developments in this arena will likely hinge on the U.S.'s ability to transition from planning to production, swiftly ensuring that it can restore its arsenal, reinforce deterrence, and maintain its position on the global stage. The stakes have never been higher, and the time for decisive action is now.